The kitchen smelled like burnt grease and desperation. I pressed my palm against the stainless steel counter, feeling the cold bite through my skin as another wave of nausea rolled through me. The fluorescent lights overhead buzzed like angry wasps, casting everything in that sickly yellow glow that made my reflection in the metal surface look ghostly, hollow. "Table 12 needs their check, Aria." Marcus's voice cut through the fog in my head. I nodded, swallowing hard against the bile rising in my throat, and grabbed the leather folder from the pass. My hands trembled slightly as I smoothed down my black apron, checking for stains. There were always stains at Giovanni's, this upscale Italian restaurant in the heart of Manhattan, where I'd been waiting tables for the past 8 months. The tips were good enough to keep the lights on in my shoebox apartment in Queens, good enough to pretend I wasn't drowning. I pushed through the swinging doors into the dining room, and the atmosphere shifted immediately. Where the kitchen was all chaos and heat, the front of house was elegant darkness, dim Edison bulbs casting warm pools of light over white tablecloths, the murmur of expensive conversations floating above the soft jazz playing through hidden speakers. The air smelled like truffle oil, wine, and money, so much money. My sneakers, hidden beneath my black slacks, squeaked softly against the polished hardwood as I made my way toward table 12. I could feel Marcus watching me from the kitchen window, probably noting how slowly I was moving, how I had to stop and steady myself against the host stand for just a moment. I couldn't tell him, couldn't tell anyone. The couple at table 12 barely glanced at me as I set down their check. Too absorbed in their own world of privilege and possibility, I murmured something polite, professional, then turned to head back to the kitchen when I felt it. That prickling sensation at the back of my neck, the one that said someone was watching. My eyes scanned the dining room almost unconsciously, sliding past the usual Thursday night crowd of business dinners and anniversary celebrations until they snagged on a man sitting alone in the corner booth, the exclusive section where we only seated VIPs. He was young, maybe early 30s, with dark hair styled in that effortlessly expensive way that suggested a personal barber. His suit was black, perfectly tailored, the kind you saw in magazines but never in real life. At least not in my life. A wine glass sat untouched before him, and his attention was fixed on his phone, but something about his stillness felt predatory, controlled. Even from across the room, I could sense the power radiating off him like heat. "That's Mr. Valentino's table," Sophia whispered, appearing at my elbow. She was the other evening server, had been working here for 3 years. "Don't stare. Just don't. Who is he?" I breathed, unable to look away. "You don't want to know." Sophia's voice dropped even lower. "Just be grateful he's not in your section." But as if summoned by our attention, the man's eyes lifted from his phone and locked directly onto mine. Dark eyes. So dark they looked black in the dim lighting, and they held me frozen in place like a butterfly pinned to a board. His expression didn't change, no smile, no acknowledgement, but something flickered in those depths. Recognition? Interest? Threat? My breath caught in my throat. "Aria!" Marcus's harsh whisper broke the spell. I jerked my gaze away, my heart hammering against my ribs, and hurried back toward the kitchen. But I could still feel those eyes on me, tracking my movement across the floor like a predator watching prey. The rest of my shift passed in a blur of automatic movements, taking orders, delivering food, clearing tables. But my awareness kept returning to that corner booth, to him. Twice more I caught him watching me, and each time that same electric current of something shot down my spine. Fear, maybe, or recognition of danger. By the time 11 o'clock rolled around, my feet were screaming, and the nausea had settled into a constant low-grade churning. I clocked out, changed into my jacket, and pushed through the back entrance into the alley. The October air hit my face like a slap, cold and sharp, carrying the smell of garbage and rain. I pulled my jacket tighter and started the 3-block walk to the subway station, my tips heavy in my pocket. $400 tonight, a good night, enough to... You're Aria. I spun around, my heart leaping into my throat. He stood 5 feet away, hands in his pockets, perfectly still, except for the slight fog of his breath in the cold air. Up close, he was even more devastating, sharp jawline, Full lips, and those eyes. God, those eyes seemed to see straight through me. My voice came out as a squeak. I cleared my throat. Do I know you? No. He took a single step closer, and I noticed for the first time the black SUV idling at the mouth of the alley, its windows tinted so dark I couldn't see inside. But I know you. Ice flooded my veins. I don't understand. You met my brother. 6 weeks ago. His voice was quiet, smooth as expensive whiskey. But there was something underneath it, something sharp. At the Emerald Room. The Emerald Room. That upscale lounge where I'd picked up a single shift, trying to make extra money. Where I'd met... Oh God. Luca, I whispered, and watched his expression shift almost imperceptibly. A tightening around his eyes, a slight press of his lips. Yes, Luca Valentino. He took another step closer, and I could smell his cologne now, something dark and woodsy with notes of leather and smoke. My younger brother, who has apparently disappeared with $200,000 of my money and left behind complications. My hand instinctively went to my stomach, a gesture I immediately regretted as his eyes tracked the movement. I don't know where he is, I said quickly, hating how my voice shook. He never told me his last name. We only met that one night, and then he just disappeared. I've been trying to find him too because I need to tell him you're pregnant with his child? The world tilted sideways. My back hit the brick wall behind me, rough against my shoulder blades even through my jacket. How did you... I know everything about you, Arya-Chen. He was close now, close enough that I could see the fine weave of his suit, the glint of a platinum watch at his wrist. 24 years old, Columbia dropout, no family. Working 3 jobs to stay afloat in one of the most expensive cities in the world, and now carrying the child of a man who stole from me and vanished. Tears burned behind my eyes, but I blinked them back furiously. I don't have your money. I don't know anything about any money. Luca told me he was a financial consultant. We spent one night together, and then he was gone. I've been calling, texting, nothing. And now My voice cracked. I'm 8 weeks pregnant and completely alone. Something flickered across his face, too quick to read. He pulled a hand from his pocket, and I flinched. But he was only holding a business card. He pressed it into my palm, his fingers warm against my cold skin. Tomorrow. Noon. That address. His voice had dropped even lower, intimate and commanding all at once. A car will pick you up from your apartment. Wear something nice. Why would I? Because you're going to help me find my brother. His lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. And because right now you're carrying the only Valentino heir besides myself, which makes you valuable. The way he said that last word sent shivers cascading down my spine. I'm not going anywhere with you. I tried to sound firm, but it came out breathless. I don't even know your name. He leaned in, close enough that his breath ghosted across my cheek, and whispered, Dante Valentino. And you will come tomorrow, Arya, because if you don't... He pulled back slightly, and I saw it then. The darkness beneath the civilized surface. The barely leashed violence, the absolute certainty that he always got what he wanted. If you don't, he continued softly, I'll have to come get you myself, and I promise you won't like the methods I use when people make me chase them. Then he was gone, melting back into the shadows, the SUV's engine purring to life. I watched it glide away into the Manhattan night, leaving me trembling against the brick wall with his business card clutched in my fist. I looked down at it with shaking hands. Dante Valentino, CEO, Valentino Enterprises. No phone number, just an address in Tribeca. I walked to the subway in a daze, barely noticing the other late-night commuters, barely feeling the rocking of the train beneath my feet. My apartment was dark and cold when I finally stumbled through the door, and I sat on my second-hand couch for a long time, staring at that card. Everything Luca had told me was a lie. Financial consultant, working on a big deal, had to travel for work, all lies. And now his brother, this terrifying, magnetic man who looked at me like I was a puzzle he intended to solve, wanted me to help him. Wanted me to... What? Betray the father of my child? I pressed my hand to my stomach, feeling nothing yet. Just the slight bloat that could have been anything. You're carrying the only Valentino heir besides myself. What kind of family had I gotten tangled up with? I should have been scared. I was scared. But underneath the fear was something else. A treacherous flutter of awareness. The way Dante's eyes had held mine. The barely controlled power in his stillness. The promise of danger wrapped in expensive clothing. I had until noon tomorrow to decide. As I lay in bed that night, sleepless and spinning, I kept seeing his face, kept hearing his voice, kept remembering the way he'd said my name, like he'd been tasting it, testing it. Arya. And despite everything, despite the fear and the confusion and the absolute insanity of the situation, I knew I would go. God help me, I knew I would go. The black Mercedes arrived at 11:30, idling outside my building like a sleek predator. I watched it from my third-floor window, my stomach churning with anxiety that had nothing to do with morning sickness. I'd spent the entire morning trying on the 3 decent dresses I owned, finally settling on a simple navy sheath that at least looked professional, even if it was from Target. My hands trembled as I applied mascara, smudging it twice before getting it right. What am I doing? But I knew what I was doing. I was out of options, out of money, or I would be soon, out of choices. And whether I liked it or not, the man growing inside me connected me to the Valentino family now. To Luca, who had disappeared, and to Dante, who seemed to exist in a realm of power and danger I couldn't begin to comprehend. My phone buzzed. An unknown number. The car is waiting. No signature. No explanation needed. I grabbed my purse, worn leather that had seen better days, and headed downstairs, each step feeling like walking toward an edge I couldn't see. The driver stood beside the Mercedes, a mountain of a man in a black suit and sunglasses despite the overcast sky. He opened the rear door without a word, his face expressionless. The interior smelled like leather, and something expensive I couldn't name. The seats were butter soft, the windows tinted so dark the world outside looked like a shadow play. As soon as my door closed, we were moving, gliding through Queens traffic with a smoothness that felt surreal. I tried to track where we were going, but after the first few turns, I lost my bearings. We crossed a bridge, the Queensboro, I thought, and then we were in Manhattan, weaving through streets that grew progressively more expensive. The buildings got taller, shinier, more imposing. Finally, we pulled up in front of a converted warehouse in Tribeca, all exposed brick and floor-to-ceiling windows. The kind of building that got featured in architecture magazines. The kind of building where a single floor probably cost more than I'd earn in 10 years. The driver opened my door, and I stepped out onto the sidewalk, my cheap flats looking pathetic against the pristine concrete. Another man in a black suit stood at the entrance. Security, I realized. He spoke into his wrist as I approached, and the glass door buzzed open. The lobby was all industrial chic, polished concrete floors, exposed steel beams, modern art that probably cost more than a car. A private elevator stood open, waiting. I stepped inside, and it began ascending without me touching a button. My reflection stared back at me from the mirrored walls, pale, dark circles under my eyes, hair pulled back in a simple ponytail because I didn't have time to style it properly. I looked exactly like what I was. A broke waitress way out of her depth. The elevator opened directly into a penthouse, and I stepped into a space that stole my breath. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of Manhattan, the city spreading out below like a kingdom. The furniture was all clean lines and expensive fabrics, charcoal grays, deep blacks, touches of steel. Everything looked like it belonged in a museum, untouchable and perfect. Miss Chen. I turned to find a woman in her 50s, elegantly dressed in a cream blouse and tailored pants, her silver hair swept into a sophisticated twist. She smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. "I'm Mrs. Chen, no relation," she added with practiced humor. "Mr. Valentino's personal assistant. He's on a call but will join you shortly. May I offer you something to drink? Water? Tea? Water is fine. Thank you." My voice sounded small in this vast space. She disappeared through a doorway, leaving me standing awkwardly in the center of the room. I didn't dare sit on the pristine furniture, didn't dare touch anything. I wrapped my arms around myself and walked toward the windows, drawn by the view. From up here, the city looked almost beautiful, the chaos and grime invisible, replaced by a glittering expanse of possibility. From up here, you could pretend the world was clean and ordered and under control. It's a lie, you know. I spun around. Dante stood in a doorway I hadn't noticed before, dressed more casually than last night. Black jeans, a charcoal Henley that clung to his frame, showing the lean muscle underneath. His feet were bare against the concrete floor, and somehow that detail made him seem more dangerous, more real. What is? I managed. The view. The illusion of order. He moved toward me with that same controlled grace I'd noticed last night, like every movement was calculated, precise. From up here, you can't see the blood in the streets, the bodies in the alleys, the way the city devours people. He stopped a few feet away, close enough that I had to tilt my head back to meet his eyes. In the natural light streaming through the windows, I could see flecks of gold in the darkness of his irises, could see the faint scar cutting through his left eyebrow. "Why am I here?" I asked, proud that my voice didn't shake. "I told you. To help me find my brother. I don't know where he is." "No." He studied my face with an intensity that made heat crawl up my neck. "But you knew him. Spent time with him. People reveal things without realizing it. Preferences, patterns, fears. You're going to tell me everything about your night together. Every detail, no matter how insignificant it seems." The way he said everything made my skin prickle with awareness. Mrs. Chen reappeared with a glass of water on a small tray. I took it gratefully, needing something to do with my hands. She vanished again, silent as a ghost. "Sit," Dante said, gesturing to the charcoal sofa. It wasn't a request. I sat, perching on the edge, the glass cold against my palms. He took the armchair across from me, leaning back with deceptive casualness, one ankle resting on his opposite knee, but his eyes never left my face. "Start from the beginning," he commanded softly. "How did you meet?" I took a sip of water, buying time. I was working a shift at the Emerald Room. It was my first night there. A friend got me in as extra help for a private event. Luca was at the bar. He smiled at me. And we talked. Just small talk at first. He was charming, funny, said he worked in finance. We talked about the city, about dreams. I swallowed hard. He made me feel seen, like I mattered. Something flickered across Dante's face. Too quick to read. He asked me to dinner after my shift ended. We went to this little Thai place in the East Village. Had wine, talked for hours. My cheeks burned. And then we went back to his hotel. Which hotel? The Whitmore, in Midtown. Dante pulled out his phone, typed something. "Room number? 1847, I think. 18th floor." More typing. "What did he tell you about himself?" "Not much, actually. He said he was working on a big acquisition, that he traveled a lot. He asked more about me than he shared about himself." I paused, remembering. He got a phone call around 2 a.m. He took it in the bathroom, but I heard him arguing with someone. When he came back, he seemed tense, distracted. Dante leaned forward slightly, his attention sharpening. "Did you hear any of the conversation?" "Just fragments. Something about a shipment. And a name. Marco, maybe. He kept saying he had it handled." "Marco Giuliani." Dante's voice had gone flat, dangerous. "Our accountant, who also disappeared the same night as Luca." The pieces were starting to fall into place, painting a picture I didn't want to see. "What did Luca steal?" I asked quietly. 200,000 in cash, and information worth considerably more. Dante's jaw tightened. Access codes, account numbers, details about operations that in the wrong hands could destroy everything my family has built. I didn't know. I swear I didn't. I know. He cut me off, his voice softening fractionally. "You were a convenience, a distraction, maybe even an alibi." His eyes dropped to my stomach, lingering there, though I doubt he intended that particular complication. Shame burned through me, hot and acidic. I'd been so stupid, so desperate for connection, for someone to make me feel like I mattered, that I'd fallen for the first charming man who'd paid attention to me. When did you realize you were pregnant? Dante asked. 3 weeks ago. I kept feeling sick, exhausted. Thought it was stress at first, but then I missed my period and I set the water glass down with shaking hands. I took 5 tests, all positive. Have you seen a doctor? Not yet. I have an appointment next week at the free clinic in Queens. His expression darkened. Cancel it. Excuse me? Cancel it, he repeated, pulling out his phone again. I'm setting you up with Dr. Sarah Chen at Manhattan Presbyterian. She's the best OB/GYN in the city. She'll see you Monday morning. I can't afford to— You're not paying. His tone left no room for argument. That child you're carrying is a Valentino, which means they get the best care available, which means you get the best care available. The possessiveness in his voice sent ice and fire warring through my veins. I don't want your money, I said, lifting my chin. I didn't ask for any of this. No, you didn't. He stood in one fluid motion, moving to the windows, his back to me. But you're in it now. And there are people who would pay very well to know about Luca's child. People who would use you, hurt you, to get to my family. Fear crawled up my spine. What kind of people? The kind who don't ask politely. He turned back to face me, silhouetted against the bright windows. The kind who would cut that baby out of you just to prove a point, I gasped, my hand flying to my stomach protectively. You understand now? He crossed back to me, crouching down so we were at eye level. This close, I could see the fine lines around his eyes. Smell that intoxicating cologne again. You're not safe anymore, Arya. You haven't been safe since the moment Luca touched you. So what do you want from me? My voice came out as a whisper. His hand came up slowly, giving me time to pull away, but I didn't. Couldn't. His fingers brushed my cheek, gentle despite the calluses I could feel there. I want you to trust me, to let me protect you while we find my brother and sort out this mess he's created. Why would you protect me? I'm nothing to you. His thumb traced my jawline, sending shivers through my entire body. You're carrying my nephew or niece. That makes you family. And I protect what's mine. What's mine? Those words shouldn't have sent heat pooling low in my belly, shouldn't have made my breath catch, but they did. There's a family dinner tomorrow night, he said, his voice dropping lower, more intimate. At my mother's estate in Westchester. I want you there. Why? Because if you're going to be part of this family, you need to meet them. And they need to understand that you're under my protection. His eyes held mine, intense and unwavering. No one touches you. No one threatens you. No one so much as looks at you wrong. Understood? I should have been terrified, should have run. But instead, I found myself nodding, mesmerized by the absolute certainty in his voice, the dark promise of safety wrapped in danger. Good. He stood, pulling me up with him, his hand warm and strong around mine. Mrs. Chen will take you shopping this afternoon. You'll need appropriate clothing for tomorrow, and then she'll take you home, to your new home. What? No, I have an apartment, which is about to be vacated. His grip tightened fractionally when I tried to pull away. You're moving into the guest suite here. Today. Your things are already being packed as we speak. You can't just— I can, and I am. His free hand came up to cup my chin, forcing me to meet his gaze. This isn't negotiable, Arya. You're in danger, real danger, and I will do whatever it takes to keep you and that baby safe, even if it means keeping you prisoner in a gilded cage. There it was, the truth beneath the protective words. He wasn't asking, he was taking. And God help me. Part of me wanted to be taken. The guest suite was larger than my entire apartment. I stood in the doorway, taking in the king-sized bed with its charcoal duvet, the sitting area with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, the ensuite bathroom visible through an open door, all marble and chrome. My few belongings looked pathetic scattered across the pristine white dresser, a canvas tote bag with my toiletries, 3 days' worth of clothing, the photograph of my parents taken 2 months before the car accident that killed them when I was 19. This is temporary, I told myself, but the words felt hollow. Mrs. Chen had been efficient and terrifyingly thorough during our shopping trip. We'd hit stores I'd only ever walked past. Bergdorf Goodman, Saks, boutiques in Soho where a single dress cost more than my monthly rent. She'd selected clothing with a practiced eye. Elegant dresses, tailored pants, soft sweaters in jewel tones that brought out my eyes. When I'd protested the expense, she'd simply smiled that pleasant, empty smile and said, "Mr. Valentino insists." Everything was charged to an account I never saw. Now those shopping bags sat in the corner of this beautiful prison, and I felt the walls closing in despite the space. I walked to the windows, smaller than the ones in Dante's living area but still offering a view of the city, and pressed my forehead against the cool glass. What was I doing? I should have said no, should have run. But where would I run to? And how long before whoever Dante was afraid of found me? People who would cut that baby out of you just to prove a point. My hand found my stomach again. That protective gesture that was becoming automatic. I didn't know if I wanted this baby. Didn't know if I was ready to be a mother. But I knew with absolute certainty that I would protect it. Would do whatever necessary to keep it safe. Even if it meant staying here, with him. A knock at the door made me jump. "Come in," I called, expecting Mrs. Chen. But it was Dante who entered, changed now into a black suit, his hair slightly damp like he'd just showered. He carried a small velvet box that made my stomach drop. "We need to talk about tomorrow," he said, closing the door behind him. The click of the latch felt final. "Okay." I stayed by the window, needing the distance. He crossed to the sitting area, settling into one of the armchairs like a king on his throne. "My family is more complicated. My mother, Isabel, runs the household with an iron fist. She'll be suspicious of you, suspicious of anyone connected to Luca right now. Don't take it personally. Hard not to when someone thinks you're a gold digger." His lips quirked slightly. "She'll think worse than that, but you'll have my protection, which counts for everything." He opened the velvet box, revealing a ring, a stunning emerald surrounded by diamonds, set in platinum. "You'll wear this tomorrow." I stared at the ring, my heart pounding. "What is that?" "Insurance. A statement." He stood, moving toward me with that predatory grace. "In my world, symbols matter. And this symbol says you belong to me. I don't belong to anyone, don't you?" He was close now, too close, invading my space until I could feel the heat radiating from his body. "You're living in my home, wearing clothes I bought, carrying protection only I can provide." He lifted the ring from the box. "This just makes it official." "Official how?" My voice came out breathless. "Official as in everyone at that dinner will understand you're under my personal protection. That touching you means war with me." He reached for my left hand, and I let him take it, mesmerized by the intensity in his dark eyes. "It also means my mother can't throw you out before you've even had dessert." The ring slid onto my finger, a perfect fit, heavy, expensive, binding. "It was my grandmother's," Dante said softly, still holding my hand. "She gave it to me before she died, made me promise to only give it to someone worthy of the Valentino name." I looked up at him sharply. This isn't..." "Relax, Arya." His thumb stroked across my knuckles, sending electric currents up my arm. "I'm not proposing. I'm protecting. There's a difference." But something in his eyes suggested the line between those two things wasn't as clear as he pretended. "What if I don't want to go tomorrow?" I tried to pull my hand back, but he held firm. "Then I'll carry you to the car myself." No anger in his voice, just absolute certainty. "You need to understand something. I don't make idle threats. When I say you're coming to dinner, you're coming to dinner. When I say you're staying here, you're staying here. I'm not asking for your permission, Arya. I'm telling you what's going to happen." Heat flashed through me, anger and something else I didn't want to name. "You can't just control my life. I can. And I am. For your own good." His free hand came up to cup my face, and I hated how my body responded, leaning into his touch despite my mind screaming at me to pull away. "I know you don't understand yet. You don't know what Luca has made you part of, but you will. And when you do, you'll be grateful I locked you in this gilded cage before the wolves could get to you. Stop calling it a cage. What else would you call it?" His voice dropped lower, intimate and dangerous. "You can't leave without my permission. Can't go anywhere without security. Can't make a move without me knowing about it. If that's not a cage, I don't know what is. Tears burned behind my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. I hate this. I hate feeling trapped. I know. His thumb brushed away a tear that escaped despite my efforts. But hate me from safety, rage at me from behind locked doors and bulletproof glass. Because the alternative is you dead in some alley, and I won't allow that. Why? I whispered. Why do you care so much? For a moment, something raw flickered across his face. Pain, maybe, or memory. Because I've already lost too many people I should have protected, and I won't lose another. Not on my watch. Before I could respond, his phone buzzed. He released me, stepping back as he checked the screen. His expression darkened. What is it? I asked. Marco Giuliani was found an hour ago, floating in the East River. He typed something quickly, his jaw tight. Shot twice in the head, hands zip-tied behind his back. Ice flooded my veins. And Luca? Still missing. His eyes lifted to mine, and I saw the calculation there. But whoever killed Marco is looking for him, which means they might come looking for you too. You're the only connection to Luca that exists in the public eye. How would they even know about me? Because Marco talked before he died. He always did. Weak constitution, weaker spine. Dante pocketed his phone, which is why, as of right now, you don't leave this building without me or my head of security, Victor. Not for anything. What about my job? I have a shift tomorrow night. You don't work there anymore. He said it casually, like he was commenting on the weather. I called Giovanni's this afternoon, told them you were taking an extended leave for family reasons. They were very understanding once I made a generous donation to their retirement fund. The walls were definitely closing in now. You can't just rearrange my entire life. I just did. He moved toward the door, then paused, looking back at me. Dinner's at 7. Mrs. Chen will bring it to your room since you seem like you need time to adjust. Tomorrow morning, Dr. Chen will be here at 9 for your appointment. I'll be with you. You don't need to. Yes, I do. Something fierce flashed in his eyes. That's my nephew or niece you're carrying. I'm going to be at every appointment, every ultrasound, every moment. Get used to it, Arya. I don't do anything halfway. He left before I could argue, the door closing with a soft click that sounded like a cell locking. I sank onto the bed, the emerald ring heavy on my finger, and finally let the tears fall. The next morning, Dr. Sarah Chen arrived precisely at 9, a petite woman in her 40s with kind eyes and an efficient manner. She set up a portable ultrasound machine in my room, while Dante watched from the doorway, arms crossed, his presence filling the space despite his silence. All right, Arya, Dr. Chen said warmly. Let's take a look at this baby. I lay back on the bed, lifting my shirt to expose my still flat stomach. The gel was cold, making me flinch, and immediately Dante was there, his hand finding mine and squeezing gently. I looked up at him in surprise, but his eyes were fixed on the ultrasound screen. Dr. Chen moved the wand across my stomach, and suddenly there it was, a tiny flutter of movement, a rapid heartbeat filling the room like a drum. There's your baby, Dr. Chen said, pointing to a small bean-shaped shadow on the screen. Measuring right at 8 weeks, strong heartbeat, that's what we want to see. I stared at the screen, unable to process what I was seeing. That tiny thing was inside me, growing, becoming a person. Everything looks good, Dr. Mo. Chen continued, taking measurements, clicking buttons. Have you been experiencing any complications? Bleeding, severe cramping? Just nausea and exhaustion. Normal for the first trimester. I'm going to prescribe some prenatal vitamins and something for the nausea if it gets unbearable. She handed me a towel to wipe off the gel. I want to see you again in 4 weeks, and if you experience any bleeding or severe pain, call me immediately, day or night. She gave me her card, with her personal cell number written on the back, and began packing up her equipment. Dante walked her out, their voices low in the hallway, too quiet for me to hear. When he returned, he sat on the edge of the bed, his expression unreadable. That's real, he said finally. That baby is real. I know. My hand went to my stomach again, protective. Luca is an idiot. The words were harsh, but his tone was almost gentle. To walk away from that. From you. Something cracked in my chest. Maybe he didn't want it. Maybe he never... Doesn't matter what he wanted. Dante's hand covered mine, both of us cradling my stomach now. That baby exists, and it deserves better than a father who steals and runs. It deserves protection, stability, safety. His hand was so warm against mine, his touch surprisingly gentle for someone who radiated such danger. Tonight, he said, you'll meet my family, and they'll understand that this child, your child, is under my protection, which means it's untouchable. His eyes met mine, fierce and possessive. No one hurts what's mine, Arya. No one. There it was again, mine, and despite everything, despite the fear and the confusion and the absolute insanity of the situation, I found myself believing him, found myself wanting to believe that this dangerous, beautiful man could actually keep us safe. Even if safety meant surrendering my freedom, even if it meant becoming his. Mrs. Chen appeared in the doorway. Mr. Valentino, the car will be ready at 5. I've laid out Miss Chen's dress for this evening. Thank you, Mrs. Chen. He stood, looking down at me. Rest this afternoon. Tonight is going to be... intense. After he left, I found the dress hanging in the closet, a deep burgundy silk that probably cost more than I used to make in a month. Elegant, sophisticated. The kind of dress that belonged in a world I'd only ever glimpsed from the outside. I touched the fabric, feeling the cool silk slide beneath my fingers, and wondered who I was becoming. The girl who used to serve tables and count pennies felt very far away. In her place was someone else, someone who wore emeralds and silk, someone protected by a mafia boss who looked at her like she was a treasure worth killing for, someone trapped in a beautiful cage. And the most terrifying part? I wasn't sure I wanted to escape anymore. The drive to Westchester took 45 minutes, but it felt like hours. I sat in the back of the Mercedes beside Dante, hyper-aware of every inch of space between us. He'd barely spoken since we'd left the city, his attention fixed on his phone, fingers moving rapidly across the screen. But I could feel his awareness of me, the occasional glance, the way his body shifted slightly whenever the car turned and our shoulders brushed. I smoothed the burgundy silk over my knees for the 100th time, the emerald ring catching the late afternoon light. Mrs. Chen had done my hair in soft waves, applied makeup that made me look polished and expensive. I barely recognized myself in the mirror. Stop fidgeting, Dante said without looking up from his phone. I'm nervous. Don't be. He finally looked at me, his dark eyes traveling over my face, down to the ring on my finger, back up again. You look perfect, like you belong. But I don't belong. This isn't my world. It is now. He pocketed his phone and shifted to face me fully. Listen to me carefully, Arya. My family is going to test you, my mother especially. She'll ask questions designed to trip you up, make you reveal things you don't want to share. Don't take the bait. What kind of questions? About your family, your background, how you met Luca, what you want from us. His hand found mine, warm and solid. Just stay calm. Stay close to me. And remember, you're there because I want you there. That's all the justification you need. The car turned onto a private road flanked by towering oak trees, their branches creating a canopy overhead. Through gaps in the foliage, I caught glimpses of a massive estate, stone and glass, sprawling across manicured grounds like something out of a magazine. That's home, Dante said, following my gaze. Where I grew up, where Luca grew up. Something tightened in his expression. Where he should be right now, answering for what he's done. The car pulled up to a circular driveway in front of the main entrance. 2 men in suits stood flanking the door, security, obviously. Victor emerged from a second SUV that had followed us, his massive frame moving with surprising grace as he scanned the perimeter. Stay behind me until we're inside, Dante instructed, opening his door. I followed him out, my heels clicking against the cobblestones. The October air was crisp here, carrying the scent of wood smoke and dying leaves. Beautiful and melancholy all at once. The front door opened before we reached it, revealing an older woman in a black dress, a housekeeper, I assumed. She nodded to Dante with obvious respect, her eyes flickering to me with undisguised curiosity. "They're in the drawing room, Mr. Dante," she said in accented English. Italian, maybe. "Thank you, Maria." Inside was even more impressive than outside. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, artwork that belonged in museums. But it was cold somehow, despite the obvious wealth. Like a mausoleum dressed up as a home. Dante's hand found the small of my back, warm through the silk of my dress, guiding me down a long hallway. I could hear voices ahead, multiple conversations layering over each other, the clink of glasses, laughter that sounded sharp. We entered a massive room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking gardens that stretched toward woods in the distance. About 20 people milled around, all dressed in expensive clothing, all holding drinks. The conversations died the moment we appeared. Every eye turned to us, to me. "Dante!" A woman's voice cut through the silence. She glided toward us, and I recognized power when I saw it, mid-50s. Elegant in a way that suggested old money and older traditions. Her dark hair was swept up, her dress a deep emerald that matched the ring on my finger. Probably not a coincidence. "You're late." "Traffic, Mother." Dante's hand tightened slightly on my back. "May I introduce Aria Chen? Aria, this is my mother, Isabel Valentino." Isabel's eyes raked over me, cold and assessing. "Chen, Chinese. My father's family was from Shanghai," I said, lifting my chin. "My mother was Irish-American." "Was?" She caught the past tense immediately. "They died 6 years ago. Car accident." Something flickered in her expression, too quick to read. "I see. And how exactly do you know my son?" "Which one?" The words were out before I could stop them, and I felt Dante stiffen beside me. A tense silence filled the room. Then Isabel's lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. "Bold. I can appreciate that." She took a sip of her wine, her eyes never leaving my face. "Though boldness without wisdom is just foolishness. Tell me, Miss Chen, where is my younger son? I don't know." "Don't you?" She moved closer, and I caught her perfume, something French and expensive. "You spent the night with him. Surely he mentioned something about his plans. He told me he was a financial consultant. That he traveled for work. That was all." I felt heat creeping up my neck but held her gaze. "I didn't know about any of this. About your family. About the money. About the fact that you're now carrying a Valentino heir." She glanced at my stomach, and I realized Dante must have told her. How convenient. "Mother." Dante's voice held a warning. "What? I'm supposed to welcome this girl with open arms because she claims to be pregnant with Luca's child? For all we know, this is exactly what Luca planned. Leave behind a mess for us to clean up while he disappears with our money. It's not like that," I said, my voice shaking. "I didn't even know I was pregnant until 3 weeks ago, and I've been trying to find Luca ever since." "Of course you have. Because you need money." Isabel's smile turned sharp. "How much were you hoping for? A few thousand to make you go away? Or were you planning to bleed us dry over 18 years of child support?" Rage flooded through me, hot and cleansing. "I don't want your money. I never asked for any of this, and if I'd known what kind of family Luca came from, I would have run the other direction. And yet, here you are, in my home, wearing my mother-in-law's ring." She looked at Dante. "Really, darling? Your grandmother's emerald? For this?" "For the mother of my nephew or niece," Dante said coolly. "Show some respect, Mother, or have you forgotten what family means?" The tension in the room ratcheted up another notch. I could feel everyone watching, waiting to see how this confrontation would resolve. "I haven't forgotten," Isabel said softly, dangerously, "which is why I question bringing an outsider into our midst when one of our own has betrayed us." "How do we know she's not part of whatever Luca is planning?" "Because I've had her investigated. Background checks, financial records, social media history, everything." Dante's hand slid around my waist, pulling me against his side, claiming me. "She's exactly what she appears to be. A girl who made a mistake with the wrong man and is now paying the price. Paying the price by living in your penthouse, wearing designer clothes, having access to our family?" Isabel shook her head. "You're too trusting, Dante, just like your father was. And look where that got him. The room went silent. Dead silent. Dante's entire body went rigid beside me. When he spoke, his voice was ice. Don't. Someone has to say it. Isabel drained her wineglass. Your father trusted the wrong people. Let outsiders get too close, and it cost him his life. I won't watch you make the same mistake. Aria is not a threat. Each word was bitten off, controlled fury barely leashed. She's under my protection, which means she's off limits to your paranoia and your tests. Are we clear? Mother and son stared at each other, a battle of wills playing out in silence. Finally, Isabel inclined her head slightly, crystal clear. Though I hope you know what you're doing, darling. For all our sakes. She turned and walked away, the crowd parting for her like water. I realized I'd been holding my breath and let it out slowly, my knees weak. I should go. I shouldn't have come. You're not going anywhere. Dante's arm tightened around my waist. You're exactly where you need to be. Dante. An older man approached, his suit immaculate, his hair silver at the temples. Introduce me to your guest. Aria, this is my uncle, Antonio Valentino, my father's younger brother. Dante's tone had warmed slightly. Uncle, this is Aria Chen. Antonio took my hand, bending over it with old-world courtesy. A pleasure, my dear. Please don't let Isabel intimidate you. She's protective of family, sometimes to a fault. She thinks I'm after your money, I said bluntly. Of course she does. Everyone is after our money. He smiled, and it reached his eyes, the first genuine warmth I'd encountered since arriving. But Dante is an excellent judge of character. If he's brought you here, there's a reason, and that's good enough for me. Over the next hour, I met cousins, business associates, family friends, a dizzying array of faces and names I'd never remember. Most were polite, but distant. A few were openly curious. All of them looked at the ring on my finger with varying degrees of interest or suspicion. Through it all, Dante never left my side. His hand stayed on my back, my waist, my elbow, constantly touching, constantly claiming, making it clear to everyone in the room that I was under his protection. When dinner was announced, he guided me to the formal dining room, another massive space with a table that could seat 40. He pulled out my chair personally, settling me between himself and Antonio. Isabel sat at the head of the table, her expression unreadable. The meal was elegant, course after course of Italian cuisine that probably cost more than my monthly salary used to be. I picked at my food, too nervous to eat much despite how delicious everything was. You need to eat, Dante murmured, cutting a piece of chicken and holding the fork to my lips. For the baby. Heat crawled up my neck as I opened my mouth, accepting the food. The gesture was intimate, possessive, and every eye at the table watched it happen. Isabel's wineglass paused halfway to her lips. How attentive. I take care of what's mine, Dante said calmly, offering me another bite, that phrase again. What's mine? And the terrifying part was how natural it was starting to feel. How right. Halfway through the main course, a phone buzzed. Multiple phones, actually. Dante pulled his out, and I watched his expression transform, going from controlled warmth to cold fury in an instant. Excuse me, he said, standing abruptly. He looked at Antonio. With me. They disappeared through a side door, along with two other men I'd been introduced to as business associates. The room felt smaller, more threatening, without Dante's presence. So, Miss Chen, Isabel dabbed her lips with her napkin. Tell us about yourself. What did you do before you became entangled with my family? I was a student at Columbia, dropped out after my parents died to work full-time. I forced myself to meet her gaze. I've been working 3 jobs to stay afloat. 3 jobs. How industrious. She tilted her head. And what were your plans before Luca complicated them? To survive. To save enough money to finish my degree. To build a life. My hand found my stomach under the table. Those plans haven't changed. Just evolved. Evolved into living off my son's charity? Mother! A young woman down the table, early 20s with Dante's dark eyes, spoke up. That's uncalled for. Is it, Francesca? This girl shows up claiming to be pregnant with your brother's child, moves into Dante's penthouse, and wears your great-grandmother's ring. Forgive me for being suspicious. Maybe you should be suspicious of Luca, Francesca shot back. He's the one who stole from us and disappeared. She's just collateral damage. Isabel's expression hardened, but before she could respond, the door burst open. Dante strode in, his face a mask of controlled rage. Behind him, Victor moved with purpose, speaking quietly into his wrist. "We're leaving," Dante said, his hand closing around my upper arm and pulling me to my feet. "Now, what's happened?" Isabel stood, alarm flashing across her face. Someone just tried to grab Arya's roommate from her apartment in Queens. His grip on my arm tightened, asking questions about Arya, about where she is. His eyes met his mother's. Still think she's part of Luca's plan? The blood drained from my face. "Emma? Is she?" "She's fine. Building security scared them off, but they're looking for you, Arya. Which means we need to go. Now." He pulled me toward the door, and I barely had time to grab my purse before we were moving, Victor flanking us as we rushed through the house. "What about the rest of dinner?" I asked stupidly. "Fuck dinner." Dante pushed me into the back of the Mercedes. "Your safety is more important than my mother's feelings." As we sped away from the estate, I watched the lights disappear behind us, my heart hammering against my ribs. "Who was it?" I whispered. "Who tried to take Emma? We don't know yet. But we will." His arm came around my shoulders, pulling me against his side. "And when we find them, they'll wish they'd never heard your name." The promise in his voice should have scared me. Instead, it made me feel safe. The penthouse felt different when we returned. Less like a prison, more like a fortress. Victor stationed himself outside the elevator, his presence a silent promise of violence to anyone who tried to enter. Inside, Dante paced like a caged panther, phone pressed to his ear, his voice low and deadly as he issued orders in rapid-fire Italian. I stood by the windows, hugging myself, watching the city lights blur through tears I refused to let fall. Emma. They'd gone after Emma because of me, my kind, scattered roommate who never hurt anyone, who'd let me stay on her couch for 2 months when I couldn't make rent, who'd held my hair back when I'd thrown up from morning sickness. "She's safe," Dante said, appearing beside me. I hadn't heard him approach. "I've moved her to a hotel in Midtown. She has 2 guards outside her door, and has been told not to leave until I say otherwise. She must be terrified. She's alive. That's what matters." His hand found my shoulder, warm and grounding. "And she'll stay that way as long as she follows instructions." I turned to face him, anger flashing through my fear. "This is insane. People are being threatened because I slept with your brother once, because I'm pregnant with a baby I didn't even plan. How is any of this fair?" "It's not." His hands cupped my face, forcing me to meet his eyes. "Nothing about this is fair, Arya. But fair doesn't matter in my world. Only survival matters, only power matters." His thumb stroked across my cheekbones. "And right now, you have my power protecting you. That's the only thing keeping you alive. I never asked for this. No, you didn't. But you have it anyway." He leaned closer, his breath ghosting across my lips. "And I'm not letting you go. Not until Luca is found. Not until every threat is neutralized. Not until that baby is born safe and healthy. And after that," my voice came out as a whisper. Something dark and possessive flashed in his eyes. "We'll see." His phone buzzed again, breaking the moment. He released me, stepping back to answer it, and I wrapped my arms around myself, suddenly cold despite the warmth of the room. Over the next 3 days, the penthouse became my entire world. Dante worked from home, his office door open so he could see me moving through the space. Meals appeared at regular intervals, prepared by a chef I never saw. Dr. Chen came by twice to check on me, her kind eyes worried despite her professional smile. And every night, I lay in my beautiful prison, staring at the ceiling, feeling the baby growing inside me, and wondering how my life had spiraled so completely out of control. On the 4th morning, I woke to find Dante standing in my doorway, dressed in all black, his expression grim. "We found him," he said simply. My heart stopped. "Luca?" Get dressed. You're coming with me." 20 minutes later, I sat in the back of the Mercedes, Dante beside me, Victor driving. We headed downtown, into neighborhoods I recognized from my waitressing days. Industrial, rough, the kind of places tourists avoided. "Where is he?" I asked. "A warehouse in Red Hook. He's been hiding there for weeks, apparently. Living like a rat." Dante's jaw tightened. Marco gave him up before he died. Thought it might save him. Did it? No. The word hung in the air between us, heavy with implications I didn't want to examine too closely. The warehouse was exactly what I'd expected. Rusted metal, broken windows, graffiti crawling up the walls. 3 black SUVs were already parked outside, men in suits standing guard. They nodded to Dante as we approached, their faces carefully blank. "Stay close to me," Dante instructed, his hand finding mine. "Don't speak unless spoken to, and no matter what you see in there, don't scream. Understood?" Fear crawled up my spine, but I nodded. Inside, the warehouse was vast and mostly empty, our footsteps echoing off concrete floors and metal beams. In the center, illuminated by a single hanging bulb, a figure sat tied to a chair. Luca. He looked nothing like the charming man I'd met at the Emerald Room. His designer clothes were filthy and torn, his face bruised and swollen, blood crusting at the corner of his mouth. When he saw us approaching, something like hope flickered in his eyes. "Dante," he croaked, "thank God. I can explain." "Shut up." Dante's voice was flat, emotionless. He pulled me forward until we stood directly in front of Luca. "Look at her. Really look at her." Luca's eyes found mine, and I watched recognition dawn, then confusion, then horror as his gaze dropped to my stomach. "No," he whispered. "No, that's not. She's 8 weeks pregnant with your child," Dante said conversationally, like he was discussing the weather. "The child you created and then abandoned when you stole from our family and ran like a coward. I didn't know. I swear. I didn't." Luca struggled against his restraints. "Aria, please. You have to believe me. I never meant for any of this to happen." "What did you mean to happen?" My voice surprised me with its steadiness. "When you lied to me about who you were? When you used me as an alibi while you robbed your own family? What exactly was your plan, Luca?" He flinched like I'd struck him. I was desperate. Marco and I had gambling debts, serious debts. The kind of debts that get you killed if you don't pay. We thought if we could just take enough to clear them, we could fix everything. "Make it right. By stealing from your own brother," I felt Dante stiffen beside me. "By betraying your family? You don't understand what it's like." Luca's voice rose, desperate. "Living in Dante's shadow, always being the disappointment, the screw-up, the one who can never measure up. I just wanted..." He broke off, breathing hard. "I just wanted to be free. Freedom." Dante spoke the word like a curse. "You wanted freedom so badly you were willing to destroy everything. To put innocent people in danger, to abandon your own child. I didn't know about the baby. Would it have mattered?" The question hung in the air, unanswered. Dante circled Luca's chair slowly. Predator assessing prey. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to return every penny you stole, which my people have already retrieved from your pathetic hiding places, by the way. You're going to disappear, change your name, leave the country, whatever you want. But you're never coming back. Never contacting Aria or the baby, never claiming any connection to the Valentino family again. Dante, please." "I'm not finished." Dante's hand landed on Luca's shoulder, and I saw my baby's father wince. "If you ever try to come back, if you ever so much as think about Aria or that child, I will find you. And when I do, what I've done to you today will seem like a mercy. Do you understand?" Luca's eyes found mine again, desperate and pleading. "Aria, say something. Tell him you want me to stay. Tell him..." "I want you to leave," I said quietly, and watched something break in his face. "You lied to me, used me, put me in danger, and now I'm carrying your child, and you're sitting there making excuses instead of taking responsibility." I moved closer, needing him to hear every word. "I don't want your money. I don't want your name. I don't want anything from you except your absence from my life and my baby's life." Tears streaked down his bruised face. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." "Sorry doesn't fix this." I turned to Dante. "I'm done here. Can we go?" Pride flashed in Dante's dark eyes. He nodded to the men standing guard, and they moved forward to untie Luca. "You have 24 hours to disappear," Dante told his brother. After that, I stopped being merciful. We were halfway to the door when Luca called out one last time. "Take care of her, Dante. Please. She deserves better than what I gave her." Dante didn't respond, just kept walking, his hand warm and solid in mine. In the car, I finally let the tears fall. Not for Luca. I was surprised to find I felt nothing for him except maybe pity, but for everything. For the loss of the life I'd thought I was building. For the baby growing inside me who would never know its father. For the girl I used to be, who'd believed in fairy tales and happy endings. "Come here." Dante pulled me against his chest, and I went, burying my face in his expensive suit and crying until I had nothing left. When I finally pulled away, mascara probably streaked down my face. He was watching me with an expression I couldn't read. "What happens now?" I asked. "Now?" His thumb brushed away a tear from my cheek. "Now you move forward. You have this baby. You build a new life. A better life. With you hovering over me like a bodyguard?" "Yes." No hesitation. "I told you, Arya. I protect what's mine, and whether you like it or not, you're mine now. I'm not a possession. No, you're not." His hand cupped my jaw, tilting my face up to his. "You're something far more dangerous. You're an obsession." My breath caught. "Dante, I know it's wrong. I know this whole situation is insane. You're pregnant with my brother's child. You should be off limits in every possible way." His eyes searched mine, intense and unwavering. "But I can't stop thinking about you. Can't stop wanting to protect you. Can't imagine letting you walk out of my life once Luca is gone and the threat is over. It's just the situation, the drama. Once things calm down, I'm going to court you properly." His thumb traced my lower lip, sending shivers through my entire body. "I'm going to take you to dinner. Real dates, where you choose the restaurant and I don't have armed guards shadowing us. I'm going to learn everything about you, your favorite books, your secret dreams. What makes you laugh at 3 a.m? Why? Because that baby deserves a father. A real father who will be there for every moment. And because you deserve someone who will put you first, who will worship you like you should be worshipped." He leaned closer, his lips barely an inch from mine. "Let me be that man, Arya. Let me prove I can be more than the monster who locked you in a gilded cage." "You're still that monster," I whispered. "Yes." He smiled, dark and beautiful. "But I'm your monster now, and I take care of what's mine." This time, when he claimed my mouth in a kiss, I didn't pull away, didn't protest. I kissed him back with all the desperation and need and confusion swirling inside me, because he was right. This was insane, wrong in every possible way. But it was also somehow inevitable. 6 months later, I stood in the same penthouse, my stomach round with pregnancy, watching snow fall over Manhattan. Behind me, Dante wrapped his arms around my waist, his hands cradling the bump where his nephew, we'd found out it was a boy, kicked and rolled. "He's active tonight," Dante murmured against my ear. "He knows his uncle's voice." I leaned back into his warmth. "He always responds when you talk, smart kid." We'd fallen into an unexpected rhythm over the months. True to his word, Dante had courted me, slowly, carefully, with a patience I hadn't known he possessed. Dinners where we talked for hours, walks through Central Park with Victor trailing discreetly behind, nights watching old movies on his ridiculously expensive couch, his hand finding mine in the darkness. He'd been there for every doctor's appointment, every ultrasound, every middle-of-the-night craving run. He'd held my hair when morning sickness struck. He'd assembled the crib in the nursery he'd had designed, all soft blues and whites, with a mobile of stars that played Brahms's lullaby. And somehow, impossibly, I'd fallen in love with him, not despite the danger and the darkness and the possessiveness, but because of the man beneath all that, the man who read to my belly every night, who'd tracked down my father's favorite cookbook from childhood and hired a chef to recreate the recipes, who'd held me through panic attacks about becoming a mother when I had no idea what I was doing. I have something for you, Dante said now, releasing me to retrieve a small box from his pocket. My heart stuttered. Dante, it's not what you think. Not yet. He opened the box to reveal a delicate platinum bracelet with a single charm, a tiny diamond-studded baby booty. For you, to celebrate our boy. Tears sprang to my eyes. Hormones, probably, but also genuine emotion. It's beautiful. He fastened it around my wrist, then pressed a kiss to my palm. You're beautiful. Even more so now, carrying him, glowing with life and possibility. I'm huge and swollen and cry at commercials. You're perfect. He kissed me softly, sweetly. And I love you. I've been waiting to say that until I was sure you wouldn't run. But I love you, Arya. Everything about you. Your strength, your resilience, your fierce protection of our boy, the way you challenge me, the way you see past the monster to the man underneath. Our boy, I repeated, catching on the possessive pronoun. Yes, our boy. His hand covered mine on my stomach. I'm not his biological father, but I'll be his father in every way that matters. I'll teach him to walk, to read, to stand up for what's right. I'll protect him the way I protect you, and I'll love him because he's part of you. I was fully crying now, hormones and happiness and overwhelming emotion. I love you too, even though you're still kind of a monster. Especially because I'm a monster. He grinned, wicked and beautiful. Your monster. Mine, I agreed and kissed him. Outside, snow continued to fall over Manhattan, transforming the city into something magical. Inside this penthouse, my home now, truly, I stood wrapped in the arms of a man who'd started as my captor and become my everything. The gilded cage had become a sanctuary. And I'd learned that sometimes the most unexpected prisons became the safest places to land. 3 months later, I gave birth to a healthy baby boy. We named him James, after my father. Dante was there for every moment of the labor, holding my hand, whispering encouragement, looking at me like I was performing miracles. When they placed James in my arms, tiny and perfect and ours, Dante's expression transformed into something approaching awe. He's beautiful, he breathed, touching James's tiny hand with reverent gentleness. Perfect, just like his mother. He has Luca's eyes, I said quietly. He has his mother's strength. Dante kissed my forehead, and he'll have our love. That's all that matters. 2 years after that, on a cool October evening that echoed the night we met, Dante took me to the roof of his building. Our building. The entire space had been transformed with thousands of lights, roses in every color, and a string quartet playing softly. Arya Chen, he said, dropping to one knee and pulling out a ring box I recognized. The emerald and diamond ring I'd worn to that first family dinner. I know I did everything backward, locked you up before asking permission, protected you before earning the right, loved you before proving I deserved you. Dante, but I'd like to do this one thing right. He opened the box, and the emerald caught the light, sparkling like stars. Will you marry me? Will you let me be your husband, James's father, and the man who spends every day of his life proving you didn't make a mistake falling in love with a monster? I looked at this man, dangerous and devoted, possessive and protective, a walking contradiction who'd somehow become my everything. I thought about the girl I'd been, serving tables and counting pennies and dreaming of a better life. I'd gotten my better life, just not in any way I could have imagined. Yes, I whispered, and his smile could have lit up the entire city. Yes, I'll marry you. He slipped the ring onto my finger, where it had always belonged, and kissed me like I was air and he was drowning. Below us, Manhattan glittered with possibility, and in that moment, wrapped in the arms of my monster, I finally understood what freedom really meant. It wasn't about escaping cages. It was about finding someone who made you want to stay, someone worth building a life with, someone who looked at you like you were the most precious thing in their world. And I'd found that. Against all odds, in the most unexpected way, with a man who'd started as my captor and become my home, the gilded cage had become a sanctuary, and I'd never been happier to be trapped.